by Micasense. Micasense has been in the drone business and the sensor business for a couple of years now, and they came from more of the military background side of things, and they were developing sensors for aerial imagery, and they've then applied that technology skill to making vegetation mapping cameras. So this is the rededge-m by Micasense. It runs around $5,000 or so, and it's a 5-band camera. So you can see the 5 different lenses here. We have red, green, blue for an RGB composite, red edge, and near infrared. And so altogether you can get your range of multispectral or vegetation indices out there, such as NDVI, a common index that's used. This is an integration for the EB. I'll talk about that in just a bit, but you can see the downwelling light sensor, or the DLS2, on here. So each of these white dots is actually a light sensor or a light diode that collects ambient light data and then corrects the imagery for how much light is coming in. And that way you can get true reflectance that's coming off of the plants back into the camera, corrected for how much light is coming from the sun. And so you get both the camera and the light sensor as part of that package. This is also a light sensor integrated with a GPS. And so you can use the GPS in the light sensor to trigger your camera for different integrations. So you can trigger it either directly through the drone if it's fully integrated, or you can just use the drone to carry the camera, and you can use the light sensor to trigger it. So options for carrying this payload include the Micasense, or include the EB-X by SenseFly, another sister company in that parent portfolio of companies. And this just pops directly into the fixed wing aircraft, and you can actually map quite a large area with this particular setup, especially with the extended range batteries. On the EB, you can map a couple 100 acres at 400 feet altitude or 120 meters. And so it's a nice full integration in there. Another option is that you can integrate with the M200 series by DJI. And so currently I have this camera set up for the SenseFly EB, but it does have an option to have a Skyport integration integrated in. So you would mount the light sensor here on the RTK antenna for the GPS, or the extended mounting kit for the RTK. And then you would plug the camera directly in to get power off of the Skyport integration. Now, you don't necessarily need to invest in the Skyport integration. Micasense also has other integration kits that plug directly in and get power, but doesn't communicate directly through the drone. So it'll power your camera, but you would trigger then externally from the GPS that's in the DLS2. Now let's talk a little bit about processing options for the Micasense Rededge. This is probably one of the most open cameras on the market for different processing options. You can process in Pix4D Mapper or the desktop software from Pix4D, because Micasense is also a sister company of Pix4D. It's part of that parent portfolio of companies. But you can process in Pix4D Fields to get a rapid stitch. And one thing I like about that is you actually get an RGB composite map. So you get both the color map as well as your different indices. You can also process in Agisoft. So Micasense has worked with Agisoft for processing for their sensors. and that has does a good job as well. Micasense also has opened up, they have a GitHub site that has opened up so that you can calibrate their imagery and process yourself in open source applications. And that's mostly for the academic market that can't use a black box of some of these more commercial softwares that are out there. Micasense tends to work a lot with academics. Then you have a range of options in the cloud and more emerging all the time, including drone deploy for cloud processing of rededge data. There's other companies focused on the analytics. That includes companies like Solvi, Aerobotics out of South Africa, Delaire Tech or Delaire out of France, as well as Precision Hawk with their precision analytics. So those are a range of cloud processing options for you that also take the rededge camera. So that's just a quick rundown on the Micasense Rededge. I hope that's interesting to you. So some of the benefits, the openness for processing, a lot of flexibility there, getting the 5 full bands for doing RGB. And then price point, it's around a mid-level price point for most of these multispectral cameras. Also, the ability to tag the light data on there with the downwelling light sensor, and the integration in both fixed wing as well as multi-rotor for different capabilities depending on what you're mapping and what your needs are for terrain following or battery life or how many acres you need to cover, etc. So with that, we're going to move on to the next sensor.